Ted and I hooked up again in connection with lawsuit on behalf of Christopher Coles, a case that I really was hoping maybe I would be filing. But no, Ted was ready with this mother. The second that law was passed, my favorite author, Jane Coleman, reporting on the story of that smirking wise ass signing into law. Trademark law is primarily concerned with protecting symbols, names, and images, but it also intersects with the rights of personality, especially when it comes to celebrities. And that includes celebrity voices, and especially when they're used for commercial purposes. And there have been a number of landmark cases. The most important one was in 1988. Bette Midler sued Ford Motor Company, which had hired a sound-alike impersonator for a commercial after she declined to perform in their commercial. The court ruled that her voice was part of her identity, and it was protected under California's right of city law. So the case didn't directly involve trademark law, but it established that a celebrity's voice can be a protectable attribute, and it can influence how trademark and publicity rights are viewed in similar contexts.
The fact that it's using AI rather than a professional impersonation doesn't make it any less illegal. Technology doesn't magically take something outside the realm of the First Amendment. One of the trickier parts is establishing standing, the power to sue. Saying, hey, there's a law here that potentially infringes my First Amendment rights isn't necessarily enough to get standing and be allowed to bring a federal suit. You have to show a credible threat.
How do we get to find the plaintiff who can absolutely walk into court and say, I'm going to be harmed?
And it's easy when you have the governor saying, I'm hereby banning your video. Credible a threat as you can get. The law would have been clearly illegal because this was protected speech. It's political commentary. We got a hold of Mr. Reagan and we said, hey, the governor's going to come after you here, and we'd be happy to represent you pro bono if you don't already have attorneys.
Ted, wouldn't you say at this point that states and municipalities are passing laws that they know, everyone in the room knows are unconstitutional just for political signaling? It's got to be, right? I mean, could anyone who walked anywhere near a law school possibly think this law could have been constitutional?
I have no idea why they thought this. The original draft of the law had an exception for parody, and they took that exception out, at which point there's no way that it's constitutional. And they thought, oh, well, there's just a disclosure requirement. But you look at the disclosure requirement, and we have this in our complaints. We do a mock-up of the video consistent with the disclosure requirements, and it requires gigantic text throughout the length of the video, and it blocks the entire video. It's not enough to say this is parody. You have to use the precise language California demands at the precise font size that California demands. And it wouldn't even fit on the video screen. He wasn't trying to defraud anybody, and any reasonable person would have said, this is parody. We know this isn't Kamala Harris. It sounds like Kamala Harris. It's a funny parody. I think AI is a matter of kind, not a matter of type. AI makes it easier to get a likelihood of confusion, right? Because, for example, in the New Hampshire primary, somebody put together a robocall ostensibly from Joe Biden saying, please don't vote, trying to suppress the vote. And that was a clear attempt at a fraud. There wasn't any disclaimer, and somebody might reasonably have been fooled, at which point it becomes a criminal offense. But the fact that they used AI, I don't think is what makes that illegal. It's the intent to defraud. And it would have been just as intentional if instead of using AI, they hired Dana Carvey to do a Joe Biden impersonation.
You did sue Minnesota.
We think we have a strong case in Minnesota, too.
I would think so.